Happy Labor Day, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed your summer vacation series. As a gift to the subscribers of Analyzing Finance with Nick, I have created a video that is a compilation of all of the old and new money vacation destination videos that creates a video that highlights where the old and new money elites visit on their trips all over the world. We include Canada, the Western US, the Eastern US, the Caribbean, Florida, Europe, and I've also added as a bonus just exclusively to this video some of the other destinations around the world that didn't quite fit the regions mentioned in the previous video. I didn't do exclusive ones on Asia, Africa, the Middle East, or Latin America because there weren't enough destinations in each place for their own videos. So I added them along to this one to create a complete old and new money vacation guide for those who are elites and want to travel with your peers or want to know where your next aspirational vacation destination should be. Enjoy this series and have a happy Labor Day.
And what I mentioned by old money and new money vacation destinations, it's places where people in these classes go on a recurring basis and or own second properties there. I'm not really talking about like the one trip to a big city. And it's more like you'd go on family vacations or retreats or other types of more longer trips. And there are also places that are not as common for upper middle class and below people to visit. Or if they do visit, they often come in for a day trip and do not stay overnight. And that is where I'm going to break it down. And I'm going to start with California. And California is a state that has a lot of old money and new money vacation getaways because there's a lot of these places that are nice places to travel and visit in a very spectacular geography. They just don't have the high paying jobs or are not within commuting distance of the high paying jobs to be permanent residents. Like the advent of remote work might change that, but even in the current era, you're seeing a retreat back to core office communities, and these vacation destinations have not really developed into full-time living areas as hoped. But we'll start with the north and work our way down in California. And we're going to first start with the wine country. The wine country is a popular place for people to go on vacations. It's known for a mix of high class culture and exclusivity depending on where you go. And this shows with the old and new money split within the region. The old money spots in the wine country is really Napa Valley. The old money spots in the wine country, particularly in Napa Valley, with the most notable towns really being St. Helena and Yountville. Yountville is particularly famous for having the restaurant, the French Laundry, which is known as one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive and exclusive restaurant in the United States. There are places within Napa that cater more to professional class and middle class day trippers, but St. Helena and Yountville are the places often where old money have second homes or go to the ultra 5-star exclusive resorts really within the area. And then the new money area, which is a common more San Francisco day trippers, but also is developing its own kind of second home community for more tech elites who are more recently acquired their money, is Sonoma. Doesn't have this much cachet as Napa does currently, but it has a lot of wineries that can match up in terms of quality on an absolute basis and is emerging as a popular destination for wine country getaways among the Nouveau Riche. The other popular tourist area for people in Northern California is Lake Tahoe. There really isn't that much old money in Lake Tahoe because Tahoe wasn't really developed that much prior to the end of the Second World War. They did have a Winter Olympics here in the 1960s. In fact, really the 1960 Winter Olympics in Squaw Valley was kind of the catalyst that started the development of Lake Tahoe as a popular ski destination and year-round destination because Lake Tahoe is actually pretty nice to visit in the summertime as well. And if I had to pick a place that had more older money of the areas in Lake Tahoe, it's the north side, particularly Tahoe Vista and Incline Village, Nevada, which is right across the state line. Incline Village is particularly attractive. It's one of the most wealthy cities in America because it is the closest place in Lake Tahoe that is on the Nevada side, and Nevada has 0 state income tax. So a lot of people who want to live in Tahoe but want the forested areas of Nevada and are still close to all the action in Lake Tahoe and relatively close drive to San Francisco or Sacramento, but do not want to pay California state tax, will live in Incline Village. The other real area for new money in the Tahoe region is South Lake Tahoe, which particularly the city of South Lake Tahoe and the state line. This is known more for tourists. It's not really known for being like a high class place, but it's known as a high spending place. And what's also noteworthy about this place is it's where they have the Heavenly Ski Resort, which when you take the chairlift to the top, you can decide to ride down on one side of the mountain, which is the Nevada side, and the other side of the mountain, which is the California side. And it is a really nice ski resort, and the Marriott that's there is very nice and upscale, and it literally, you can just walk right to the main chairlift that takes you up to the top of the mountain from your hotel. It's a very fun place to go if you're into skiing, but it definitely skews more towards a new money crowd. Next, we're going to move a little further south and to the other old money enclaves on the central coast of California. The most notable, really, too, in the northern part of the central coast is the area by Carmel on the Sea and the Spanish Bay. This is where the famous Pebble Beach golf course is. This is where you have Pacific Grove, the Del Monte Forest, Pebble Beach, Spanish Bay, Carmel by the Sea, and Carmel Point. Clint Eastwood actually, I think, was once the mayor of Carmel by the Sea. And it's been a Los Angeles and a San Francisco old money place for decades. You kind of go there if you want to get away from the distractions of home, but still be in a high-class luxury area. It's also too far away from the core metro areas that it becomes that's not really a viable day trip. And that's a key thing you're going to see with a lot of these old money vacation destinations. They're places with very nice geography and have been settled for a long time historically, but they are a good enough distance away from the core metro area that day trippers can't go there, or it's not reasonable for commuters to live there and drive up to the core metro area. And Carmel is a perfect example of this. Just a drive, say, from San Francisco to Monterey would take you about 3 hours, and Carmel is a little bit south of that. So it's just not viable, again, for more short distance drivers or commuting. And it also allows it to be a more understated place because they don't have to compete with new money who still needs to be close to their source of income. Another even more remote example of this is you go a little bit further to the south with Big Sur, California. Big Sur is very difficult to get to, and due to a lot of landslides, you see the problem of the Highway 1, which is the only really way in and out of Big Sur, being blocked at one point, which makes it even more difficult to get to, which makes it actually somewhat more appealing as an old money vacation destination. But Big Sur is known for these really scenic views, this very rugged, empty forest, the jagged cliffs, the California coast, and it has like this new age, hippie spiritual vibe, which actually a lot of those people were old money from the East Coast who came from California to get away from that. So it makes kind of sense that a lot of that stuff still appeals to old money today. Big Sur is also notably very expensive, and it's common for retreats. And then we go further south on the Central Coast. The other famous old money destination is Santa Barbara and Montecito within the greater Santa Barbara area. Montecito is one of the most exclusive, wealthy communities in the United States. It has one of the best steakhouses in the country, and Lucky's if you've had the privilege of a chance of going there. But there's not that, other than like the shopping center with Lucky's in it, there's not really that much in terms of like commercial activity going on in Montecito. It's really just a bunch of luxury high-end estates that old money usually has a second home. They drive up from Southern California. Successful retirees who made their money somewhere else in the world and moved to Montecito to retire. Santa Barbara also, particularly the eastern side of Santa Barbara, is also an old money enclave. They had a water moratorium in the 1970s, which effectively capped the amount of building that could be done in Santa Barbara. So it's artificially restricted the supply of homes, making it very exclusive and expensive. And also because a lot of these old money bought their homes before the moratorium, that's how they were able to get in there, where it's become a lot more difficult for new money to come in, especially, again, due to anti-development restrictions that prevent either the construction of new homes or the expansion of homes to the mansion sizes that they would want. The western side of the Santa Barbara area is a little bit less elite because it's where the University of California, Santa Barbara is. So there's more of a college student crowd. And it's where a lot of people who work to service the elites in Santa Barbara live as well. But generally, Santa Barbara is a classic old money destination place. The difference, and again, it's also about a 2-hour drive from Los Angeles and a 3-hour drive from Orange County. So if you want to commute to the places that have more high-paying job opportunities, it's not really a viable place to live. But people do make day and weekend trips to Santa Barbara, even if they're not old money. And now let's go into Southern California. You have Southern California vacation destinations are mostly new money or upper middle class or middle class destinations. Like San Diego, it doesn't have any really old or new money vacation destinations. They have a lot of old and new money places to live. And I've talked about that in previous videos, the first geography of wealth and the second geography of wealth, where I broke down where the old and new money is in various California cities. And that's the thing with a lot of these places are close enough significant economic activity that people choose to live here permanently more than go on vacation if you're in the elites. So the pure vacation focused destinations in Southern California are more limited. And let's start in Orange County, where you have two of them. Newport Coast is one of them. Newport Coast does have a lot of new money that lives there, but they also have a lot of new money style resorts, particularly Pelican Hill, which is one of the most luxurious and expensive resorts in the United States of America, and is primarily attracted to new money because it's very new, it's very modern, it has certain developments. Pelican Hill is a prominent example. It's very new, it's very developed. It has this Irvine Company style, modern approach that's constantly updated. So it doesn't have the old money charm of, say, some other old money vacation destinations like Carmel, but it's ultra luxurious. It's one of the best golf courses that I've ever played personally there as well. Yeah, Pelican Hill is kind of a classic new money destination resort. And then the other one really is Monarch Beach and Dana Point. You have the Waldorf there, and it just has more new money vibes. A lot of second homes are in this area. It's still theoretically commutable to LA, but it's really pushing it. So a lot of people have made their money elsewhere, either moved to Dana Point or they have second homes. It's a little bit quieter than places like Newport Beach or Huntington Beach or Irvine, which have more active permanent residents. And then the last old money place, which I forgot to mention, is Laguna Beach and Emerald Bay. Laguna Beach was kind of the first vacation colony for Southern California. People that did not get replaced by permanent residents, like Balboa Island and Balboa Peninsula also were kind of the beach vacation getaway originally for people from Pasadena and the old money from there. But over time, those places have become more permanent resident focused, and you have a lot of commercial activity that is developed in the heart of Newport, and Newport's close to the business center of Orange County, whereas Laguna remains more small, more isolated, more remote. It's got art colony vibe to it, which is also attractive to old money. And yeah, Laguna Beach generally is the old money place in Orange County. And then last in California, we're going to talk about is the Coachella Valley and the area by Palm Springs. It's not really an old money place necessarily. It's more of a new money place because it's relatively more affordable here to buy vacation homes, but it still has an upscale vibe during the cooler months. A lot of people, this place is just kind of empty in the summer when it's regularly over 100 degrees and not very hospitable to live or play golf. But there's a lot of winter homes that people buy here. And the two most new money suburbs really within the Coachella Valley are Rancho Mirage and Palm Desert. Yeah, the JW Marriott Desert Springs is kind of a popular place that people go to stay out there if they don't own a place. But for a lot of these new money people, it's more common just to have a home that you go there and own and live in the winter months if you're a retiree, or if you are somebody who works in LA or Orange County, San Diego, you go there for weekends or holidays. Easter is particularly a popular holiday for people to go visit Palm Desert. Last but not least, we have another emerging area in California for old and new money vacation destinations, and that is Greater Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz, I mentioned in the first Geography of Wealth, is becoming an emerging new money hub for people who live in Silicon Valley but still want a beach lifestyle. But it never really was an old or new money hub to live, simply just because it was too far away from the job centers to be a viable full-time destination. And the amount of local career opportunities were just too low to develop a local economy that can have enough of its old money just outside of the seaside company that owns the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. So as a result, the money in the area is more on vacation homes and people who come here to visit. The most popular destinations for people to come visit here are the Bay Area, particularly Silicon Valley, and Central California. We have a lot of old money farmers in the Central Valley who grow a variety of crops. And they buy homes here to get away from the oppressive heat of the summer in the Central Valley and enjoy a relaxing weekend or summers on a more cooler coastal area of the Monterey Bay. And so the new money really place for this is Santa Cruz itself, particularly Santa Cruz to the east of the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. So neighborhoods such as Seabright, Twin Lakes, and the neighboring town of Capitola and Pleasure Point, which I think is part of Capitola. A lot of vacation homes are built here, or new money. It's very walkable, which makes it appealing. It's got enough stuff going on in terms of like nightlife, a local university. You have the boardwalk, of course, that it's a little busy for old money standards and it's not really as out of the way or exclusive. And it's pretty close to the main artery that connects it to San Jose. But again, for new money who wants to be near the action and wants to have a beach house that's walkable, and it's really the only decent beach in the San Francisco Bay Area that's regularly accessible. There are some in Marin County, but they're a lot more difficult to get to and they're more rustic and not as tourist friendly. Then Santa Cruz is really your place to go. The more old money areas where you have a lot of like quietly held and owned like upscale coastal properties, but not really much of a vacation community or day trippers around it, is a little bit to the east in Seacliff and Aptos. As definitely has a more old money vibe. This is where a lot of old money farmers from particularly the Central Valley own their vacation homes. And yeah, it's just a lot more quiet. And that basically wraps up California. But before we get to the rest of the western half of North America, which I'm going to discuss in this video, now we're going to move on to the rest of the western half of North America, because California is not really the only place with old and new money vacation destinations. Let's going to start with the Pacific Northwest. Pacific Northwest is actually pretty sparse in terms of old and new money vacation destinations, as it's one of the last places to develop in North America, and it was one of the last places to be settled. And so as a result, population densities are lower, and there just hasn't been enough time for old money to accumulate. But when it comes to the Pacific Northwest, the main old money places that I found are the San Juan Islands, which are a few hours to the northwest of Seattle. They kind of fit a lot of old money profile. They're close enough that if somebody really needs to get to Seattle, they can, but it's not really easily accessible by a day trip, and it's difficult to get to. You only can get to the San Juan Islands via ferry or seaplane. Like there's no airport on there, and you can't really, there's no bridges either. So that kind of adds to the aura of exclusivity. And outside of Washington State, the other real old money place in the Pacific Northwest is Sun Valley, Idaho, which has been a popular ski destination as well. That has been popular among tourists really since the late 19th century, where Rockefeller heirs were regulars there, and it has attracted a lot of old money. In terms of new money in the Pacific Northwest, you have Whistler in British Columbia, which is close enough to Vancouver that you can get there with a short drive, but it's become a very popular ski destination, and it's become a more upscale ski destination in terms of the crowd that goes there and the pricing point. Outside of BC, you also have the Coeur d'Alene Lake has become a popular new money destination. It's pretty close to Spokane, and it's been rapidly developing. A lot of California money particularly is moving here, and you have a lot of luxury houses in the region and a lot of fun water sport activities there. And so as a result, it's become a popular new money hub in the Pacific Northwest. The next place we're going to really talk about is the Mountain West states. First, let's start with the area around Yellowstone National Park, because Yellowstone historically has been a very popular vacation destination. It's actually been pretty accessible to all classes because a lot of Americans can drive there within a few days. They have lodging really at just about every price level there, and a lot of the activities there are relatively affordable to do, such as hiking, biking, exploring the geysers, and seeing all the wildlife. It's not really a class divided tourist destination like some other places I'll eventually talk about in this series. But there are old and new money enclaves that surround Yellowstone. The old money one is Jackson Hole, particularly the town of Jackson itself, which is pretty small and has a lot of development restrictions. So you've had to get in there relatively early. And so as a result, the money that is there is older. It's very high end in terms of cost. There's not that many hotels there. So it's generally very expensive to stay in Jackson Hole. And you have a lot of things that are associated with wealth, even though it's very remote. Like there's a lot of private wealth management firms and high-end banks that have branches in a place like Jackson Hole, even though the population and the lack of population density would normally not support such infrastructure. It's nearby the Grand Teton National Park and Yellowstone, which makes it attractive. And it's also a very popular ski destination. Another fun fact is Jackson Hole is where the Fed has its annual summer meeting in August, where you've had a lot of policy statements from Fed chairs and other global central bankers that have resulted in a signaling of a major monetary policy shift. And this all happens in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. The new money area, which is popular especially among the tech community increasingly and more so post-pandemic, is southwestern Montana, Gallatin County particularly, where you have Big Sky, which is this very exclusive, like members only area where a lot of new money elites have homes and participate in a lot of outdoor activities, whether it's skiing in the winter or hunting or river rafting or other mountain biking or other more warm weather outdoorsy activities in the summer. And then Bozeman, which is historically just a laid-back college town where Montana State University is, has increasingly become a more new money destination, especially as they're offering direct flights to places such as San Jose, Orange County, Los Angeles, and other new money enclaves on the West Coast. And so you're starting to see the construction of a lot of McMansions in the Bozeman area, and it's become a lot more upscale of a city than it was 10 years ago. Outside of Montana, the other popular places for new money is, first of all, in Greater Calgary, you have Banff. I was just in Banff in late May and early June and had a fan meetup in Calgary. And yeah, it's a beautiful place. You have Lake Louise and the famous Fairmont Hotel on the coast of Lake Louise, which is a very popular, like, old money type vacation place. Banff is really small, and due to conservation laws, it's very restricted in its development. And so you don't really see a lot of these giant luxury apartment towers you'd see in more new money vacation places. It's a lot more laid back. It's kind of the Canadian version of Jackson in a lot of ways. Canmore is emerging as a potential new money hub, but it's not there yet because it's still pretty accessible to middle class and upper middle class travelers. Outside of Alberta, we have one new money place in Utah. However, the rest of the new money places in the Southwest are predominantly in Colorado. And there's not really that much old money in Utah from a tourist perspective, but Park City has emerged as a new money place for vacation homes and second homes. It's become popular again with the elites in California, as well as the successful business owners and newer money emerging in Greater Salt Lake. They have a famous ski resort there. This is where the Salt Lake City Winter Olympics took place, a lot of it. And it has a lot of restrictions to development, which is limiting its size and making it more. I've been to Park City, but only in the summertime. And I thought it was a very nice place and it had a lot of new money vibes and similar shops and infrastructure and other things you would expect in a new money enclave. And you have the addition with the benefits of it being near one of America's better ski resorts. And it's still relatively accessible. It's 30 minutes from Salt Lake City and 30 minutes from the Salt Lake Airport. And so it's close enough to things that are going on that make it appealing to newer money. And now we're going to talk about Colorado, which has a mix of old and new money in terms of ski resorts. The old money is really in the Pitkin County area. It's Aspen especially is famous for old money. You have think tanks there such as the Aspen Institute. And this is the one that's been the most persistent and had the longest period of time of elites going skiing there and living there of any of the luxury ski destinations in Colorado. And as Aspen has grown, Snowmass Village, which is right next to it, has started to become integrated into the more old money community of Greater Aspen. And then with new money, there's really two main areas. You have Vail, which is noteworthy because it's kind of like the first master planned ski resort community from the scratch in Colorado, and a lot of it's run by a publicly traded company, Vail Resorts. And it's a lot of people like to think they're old money there, but it's a very new money place. It really wasn't anything there prior to the 1970s. And Beaver Creek is also a new money place as well that is similarly developed mostly post-World War II. And it's very upscale like other new money enclaves, but it doesn't have the same exclusivity and long history of Aspen. And Beaver Creek and Vail are also a lot more easily accessible to Denver because they are connected by the Interstate 70. Whereas at Aspen, you either need to fly into a really tiny airport and connect through Denver, or you're going to have a much longer and more difficult drive. So that is kind of the difference as well. Again, old money places tend to be more out of the way and harder to get to the core metro area, but still have the geography and the tradition of people going there, whereas new money places are luxurious, arguably even more luxurious than a lot of the old money places, but they generally are more accessible, both in terms of who can buy in and just getting there physically. And as we move south, there's also one old money place in New Mexico, which is Santa Fe, which has been a popular art colony. That's another trend with old money vacation destinations. A lot of them are going to be art colonies, because the old money tends to be more interested in fine art. And second, it's been a popular place for old money from the East, particularly New York, to go to over the years. Yeah, there's a lot of money, particularly from New York, that has moved to Santa Fe, and more recently, Texas, particularly old Texas money with more left of center politics who are just tired of the political culture of their home state. They're moving to places like Santa Fe, New Mexico. If I had to describe Santa Fe in one sentence based on my experiences there, it's essentially Laguna Beach, California, but in the desert. Yeah, it comes off as this very progressive place, but at the same time, it's very exclusive and very environmentally sensitive, and it's also got a very old tradition. In fact, the oldest Catholic church in the continental United States is here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And then the new money place really in the desert Southwest, which I talked about in previous Geography of Wealth, is Scottsdale, Arizona. It's become a new money place for residents on a permanent basis in the greater Phoenix area, but it's also a popular old money vacation destination. There's a lot of high-end golf courses here, particularly TPC Scottsdale, but there are others. And there's a lot of very high-end like JW Marriott, the Phoenician, the Westin Gainey Ranch, etc., that are very popular upscale hotel options. Downtown Scottsdale has become a popular new money nightlife place, and they have the high-end Fashion Square Mall there, which kind of caters to that crowd. And yeah, it's an enclave of wealth, and it's a popular vacation getaway destination from people from colder states, particularly Chicagoland, and also from California in the winter to play golf and enjoy 70 degrees without a cloud in the sky. Those are the ones in Wisconsin. Chicago is also a popular
like urban vacation place for a lot of Midwesterners in general. But the other local vacation spot that's popular for Midwesterners is Northern Michigan, with the old money or surrounding Mackinac Island, which is kind of like the Catalina Island of the Midwest and in a lake instead of really off the coast like Catalina, California. It's a lot nicer and less tacky than Catalina. Similar vibe in terms of like no cars, but it's a lot older. One of the oldest luxury resorts in America, built in the 1890s, is in Mackinac Island. And there's a lot of old money enclaves right across Lake Huron in the Upper Peninsula as well. And then on the Lower Peninsula, the old money enclave near Mackinac Island is a place called Harbor Springs in Michigan, and Harbor Point too, which is considered kind of like an old money getaway place. Like this place is prohibitively cold in the winter and it has some of the highest snow rates, fall rates in the country, but in the summer, it's actually one of the low key, most underrated places to visit. And then the more newer money area and like Northern Michigan is a city called Traverse City, which is also regarded for having nice lakefront weather and I'd say ocean-like beach activities, but in fresh water. It's a very unique vibe. And the water, surprisingly, in this area are warmer than swimming in like the coast in Southern California. So you can see the draw there, but Traverse City is relatively the new money. And the other thing that's unique about the Midwest is most of they don't have as many local vacation destinations. So a lot of them tend to travel. The old money areas popular for Midwesterners outside of the region are Scottsdale, Arizona for the winter and Tampa, Florida. In fact, generally, like Midwesterners tend to be more snowbird and winter travel due to the harsh winters and the heavy amounts of snow in the region compared to summer traveling like in other parts of the country, because summer is actually quite nice in many parts of the Midwest. Whereas new money is more international for its vacation destinations, whether that's the Riviera Maya in Mexico, whether that's going to Europe for vacations, and also California is a popular new money destination, even though it's not international for Midwesterners. So let me know what you think.
This episode, we are going to be focusing on Florida and the Caribbean. And even though these places have either never been popular places for wealthy to live permanently or have just recently become so due to the advent of air conditioning, as vacation destinations, they've had a lot longer of a history. And we are going to break that down in this video. And the first place we're going to cover in Florida is we're going to work our way north and go south. And that is Amelia Island, which is a little bit north of Jacksonville and very close to the Georgia border. Amelia Island is a place that has been a popular old money destination since at least the 19th century. It was kind of known in the old days for wealthy who were sick to go down there. Santa Fe also has a history of this too. They would go down there so they could avoid the harsh winters because they thought a mild and or warm climate was good for recovering from disease and other ailments. And so that's how Amelia Island originally developed as a popular old money vacation enclave and has since become a popular vacation enclave just generally for the southern elites. You have oftentimes the preseason conference meetings for major college sports conferences such as the SEC and the ACC take place in Amelia Island, Florida. And the favorable tax treatment for residents there in Florida versus Georgia is why that Amelia Island may become more of a old money vacation destination or second residence for Southerners compared to similar places in Georgia, such as Jekyll Island, is famous from the G. Edward Griffin book, The Creature of Jekyll Island, or if you go further north, Savannah, Georgia. But this isn't really about the rest of the South. This is about Florida. So we're going to move our way south. Like Orlando doesn't really have any old or new money vacation enclaves because before Disney, it was kind of a small citrus growing town. So we're going to move further south to really Tampa kind of developed as like the vacation destination for people, particularly middle-class Midwesterners who want to get out of the cold and they can drive straight down the I-75 to get there. However, there have been some new money vacation enclaves and second home enclaves that have developed in Florida and in greater Tampa. And the first one of these is St. Petersburg Beach. St. Petersburg is a pretty big city. It's where the Tampa Bay Rays currently play. I don't know how much longer they will given their stadium situation, but they are there. The bridges make it a little bit inconvenient for core Tampa, but it's still close enough that if you needed to get business done in Tampa, you really could get there, which is, again, kind of makes it more appealing of a new money place. And you're seeing a lot of luxury high rises and high-end houses being built here. The question really is if increased costs of homeowners insurance due to hurricane risk and flood risk, is that going to make these places less appealing in the future? But St. Petersburg Beach is rapidly developing into a popular new money destination in Greater Tampa. And then the other one really that's also developing as a popular one, it's a little further away, but it still draws a lot of retirees, is Sarasota, Florida. It's also a new money vacation destination in at least the outskirts of the Greater Tampa area. And if you move further south on the west coast of Florida, the more old money west coast Florida place is Naples, is a very high-end luxury place. There are some upper middle class people who live there primarily, but it's mostly still a vacation destination. It's a little bit too far away, like very common with old money vacation destinations, to people to be able to commute to Miami or to Tampa if they're high earning professionals who live in those areas to be a permanent residence. And so therefore it still maintains a more vacation oriented vibe. And Naples is one of the more high end places on the west coast of Florida and is probably the most old money place in the west coast of Florida. So now we're going to move east to the greater South Florida. And we talked about this in the North-South Divide episode. And you'll notice a lot of the areas that I mentioned in that one, in terms of like where the old money and new money is for people who live in Florida, is very similar to those are the ones for vacations. And the reason for that is because Florida originally developed more as a vacation place for winter getaways. And when air conditioning made it more viable to live there permanently, or a lot of other states in the U.S. started drastically increasing their state income taxes post-World War II, it became a more attractive permanent place to live. And that's why Florida is one of the fastest growing states overall population. And as well as the general population in the United States aging a lot over the past 30 years has brought down a lot of retirees. So really the main old money places for Floridian vacationers are still Palm Beach, for the same reasons I mentioned in that video. It's where you have places such as Mar-a-Lago, the Breakers Hotel, and the Flagler Museum. And this kind of was high-end, ultra-chic luxury from really the day it was built, and it still remains so today. And the fact that it is a barrier island creates some sense of exclusivity. It's also one of the furthest north suburbs of Greater South Florida, which makes it a little bit harder to access for people who have to commute to Miami on a daily basis. In terms of new money vacation destinations, there are ones that are a little bit closer to the key airports, but still have upscale luxury and high-end demographics and high-end services and resorts and second homes that people want in the new money. And those are places such as South Palm Beach, Boca Raton, Delray Beach, Deerfield Beach are kind of the more high-end new money places in Palm Beach County. And if you go further south, you have Miami Beach, but you also have Key Biscayne, which is emerging as a second home place, and Fisher Island, which are some of the most expensive properties in the United States. And a lot of those are second home and vacation homes. And then the last part of Florida we're going to talk about is the Florida Keys, particularly the area around Key West. Key West has kind of been a old money and new money enclave. I put it as new money because it's become more popular in recent years among like tech money and other more recently acquired wealth to live on the core island. It was kind of always kind of just like this backwater area. It has a naval base there that's always made it a viable city, as well as just its relative access to the Caribbean, which made it important for international trade. And it was for most of its history, a larger city than Miami itself. But Key West, as it's evolved, has become more of like an artistic getaway colony. Ernest Hemingway is famous for having a second home here. But with its increased accessibility through the bridges of the Highway 1, it's started to attract more tourists. And it's become more of a newer money place. The old money still is in Key West, but it's more in exclusive, harder to access places. And the one that's most prominent is Sunset Key, which half of it I think is a resort and half of it is single family vacation homes owned by mostly old money Floridians. Based on my experience, like the Sunset Key is a location where I stayed in probably the most luxurious hotel in my entire life in the United States was here in Sunset Key. And if you have the means to stay there, I highly recommend having a vacation there at least once in your life. Like, it's like a short Duffy boat or ferry ride away from core Key West, but you don't have to deal with all the nightlife and a lot of the noise and chaos associated with core Key West. And that's a big difference. New money likes being around the action and the nightlife and the activities, whereas old money likes to be more reserved and kind of off on its own, but still have the creature comforts of and get to know the higher end areas. And the divide between core Key West and Sunset Key is kind of a perfect example that encapsulates this trend. Before we get to the Caribbean, I just like to mention, speaking of vacations, if you want to supplement your vacation, we're having the Analyzing Finance with Nick tour, go to a variety of places this summer, primarily in Europe, where we are going to be having meetups in Amsterdam, Geneva, Zurich, and Rome. We're also going to be having a summer meetup in Seattle, Washington, and Santa Cruz, California. I look forward to seeing all of you guys there. And with that, let's get back to the video where we are going to be talking about the Caribbean. Are you looking to have your second home in Sunset Key or some other older new money place in Florida? Do you want to be able to move up to that level of class or just want to help maintain your current status there? The other thing, in addition to the tour I mentioned, is that I have started on, by popular demand, offering specific consulting to viewers who need my help on specific situations. If that is something that can help you, whether it's in terms of finance, economics, wealth management, feel free to contact me directly and I will go over your specific questions. Please do not really leave those in the comments because I cannot provide specific investment advice publicly via YouTube comments. But with that, now let's move on to the Caribbean. And in the Caribbean, you have a lot of old and new money enclaves, and kind of the dirty secret are the islands that have a higher population of Europeans as a percentage of their demographics tend to be the more old money, particularly if they're non-Hispanic or Anglo-Europeans. Like, if you look at the islands that have the highest Anglo populations as a percentage of the total island's population, it lines up well with the most old money destinations in the Caribbean. New money destinations tend to be closer to the action. They're not as remote. They're not really as exclusive or hard to, again, similar again to other old versus new money destinations. New money destinations tend to be the high-end area near where the core action is, whether that's the main tourist attractions people go to visit, the nightlife, the capital city, the big city like amenities. If you want to be close to that, it's usually a new money, whereas old money is more remote and harder to get to and more exclusive to access, but the geography might be just as stunning, but it may lack some of the big city creature comforts that a lot of new money travelers want. And the Bahamas is a good example that reflects this. Like, the new money in the Bahamas is Paradise Island, which is right by Nassau, which is the capital and the main airport is also of the Bahamas is here. And Paradise Island is famous particularly for the Atlantis Resort, which I've never been, but it's on my bucket list of places to visit. I mean, if I had enough of an audience to do so, and leave in the comments if you're interested, I might do a future Analyzing Finance with Nick meetup in Paradise Island at the Atlantis. But we don't really have the audience for it yet, but if it's something of interest, I will consider that. And yeah, it's the places with the ultra luxury resorts and the nicest beaches, but you still are close to the big city activities if you really want them. So that's kind of the example. Whereas the old money in the Bahamas is surrounded by an area known as Spanish Wells. This particular island is probably the most Anglo demographically and is one of the more exclusive and popular areas. And surrounding the islands surrounding Spanish Wells, the north part of Eleuthera and Current Island are also pretty exclusive, more old money areas. But Spanish Wells particularly is the old money enclave of the Bahamas. Another old money enclave that is out in the Atlantic Ocean, but it's technically not the Caribbean, but it's often associated with the Caribbean, is Bermuda. You have a lot of British old money here and a lot of New York old money here. You have a lot of direct flights from New York and Charlotte, and that's how the people are able to get here. It's been a prominent international offshore banking center. Bermuda has been known for being a prominent offshore banking and finance center. A lot of hedge funds in the old days before FATCA moved some of their offices to Bermuda, such as the Trout brothers. And it's also been just an old money hub generally outside of international finance, banking, and insurance. Its climate is a little bit cooler and more mild than the rest of the Caribbean, which makes it more attractive to people who don't really handle the hot heat and humidity well. But its winters are also fairly mild and doesn't get too cold like the northeastern United States does. So it's still a popular winter destination, even if it's not as warm as the rest of the Caribbean. And then the other major old money, but it's kind of hybrid. That's why I colored it orange, because I usually use red for new money and gold for old money. But there are new and old money components to the Cayman Islands. But the Cayman Islands is kind of known as the enclave of wealth. It has a reputation of being a tax haven. I talked about it in the iceberg of finance if you want more details on the financial component, but it's a popular place for accounting, banking, insurance, registering offshore entities. But it's also a very high-end vacation place. Like, for example, like the JW Marriott on 7 Mile Beach would be an expensive place to stay anywhere else, and it still is an expensive place to stay on an absolute basis, but it's the cheapest hotel in the Cayman Islands. And that kind of shows you how upscale a lot of the Cayman Islands is, particularly 7 Mile Beach, which is this beach on the west coast of the fishhook-shaped island. And yeah, it's also, the vibe of it, if I had to compare it to anywhere else in the United States, would be like a flat version of Newport Beach, California, that you can get around everywhere via bike. The demographics in terms of like the ethnic backgrounds and the geographical descent of the residents is a little bit different than a high-end Orange County city. But in terms of its level of development and upscale amenities and the average incomes and the type of jobs there, it is very similar. The next place we're going to talk about in the Caribbean are the Banff region, which has some old and new money areas. The two really old money islands we're going to be talking about are Saba and St. Barts. Saba is a Dutch island. St. Barts is a French Caribbean island. These are both known for being very exclusive. St. Barts is the most expensive Caribbean island to buy property or to vacation to. It's a very small airport. It's very difficult to get to. It has a majority European population because of the demographic, and it's got very nice beaches. I've never been there, but it's kind of a lot of new money fantasies is to retire in St. Barts. And because the reason I call it new money fantasy, because it's very rare that a new money person ever actually makes it into St. Barts, or if they do manage to buy their way in, they never really kind of fit in to the old money community that dominates St. Barts. Saba is also very exclusive old money community, but it's more rustic, it has a more environmental, ecological focus, and it's not as flashy as St. Barts. The new money islands you have is, first one is Anguilla, which has a lot of luxury resorts that are common for new money areas, and it is more recently developed than either Saba or St. Barts. And then the other new money area, which is the only other Caribbean island I've been to, the only ones that on the video I have actually been to in person are Barbados and the Cayman Islands. So the west coast of Barbados particularly is a new money destination. They're building a lot of the high-end resorts there, such as the Four Seasons and a lot of the classic luxury hotel chains that are common in new money enclaves. You have the chance to have the big mansion on the coast here, and it's relatively accessible. Bridgetown is big enough of an airport that you can fly there from Canada, the United States, and even the UK. And it is outside the Cayman Islands. It is the most economically developed island in the Caribbean. I think it has the highest GDP per capita of any of the islands in the Caribbean that are independent nations. So Barbados is really kind of, especially the west coast of Barbados, is becoming increasingly a new money enclave. And that is going to wrap up the Caribbean. Did I miss any place in the Caribbean If there are any old or new money places in the Caribbean that I failed to cover, people are going to ask me probably about Aruba and Bonaire, but those are kind of more upper middle class vacation destinations. Same with St. Lucia and St. Kitts. Those and also Turks and Caicos. That's why I didn't mention those particularly, and the Virgin Islands as well. They don't really have the exclusivity that is needed. I think the Caribbean is a middle to upper middle class vacation destination for the most part, but I did manage to fit in the enclaves of the old and new money. But if I am missing any, let me know. And what do you think about my analysis of Florida? Did I cover everything in Florida? And if there is an emerging new money enclave in either the Caribbean or Florida that's kind of below the radar, feel free to comment on this. We're going to wrap up our analysis on old and new money vacation destinations in North America with the East Coast of the United States. Or if we use old money terminology, where the wealthy go to summer. We're going to exclude Florida in this because we already covered Florida in a previous video about Florida and the Caribbean. So this focus is in the East. It's going to mostly be on the Northeast, but we're going to talk about a little bit about a few Southeastern enclaves too. One general pattern that you're really going to notice is there's not that much new money places in terms of old money summer destinations or wealthy summer destinations in the northeastern United States and in eastern Canada, because Florida has predominantly become the new money destination mainly as a winter getaway, because winter is the worst time to be in this part of the country. And the summers are actually fairly nice in a lot of parts of the Northeast. And a lot of the prime real estate has been taken over by old money because this was the first place to be colonized and where the first fortunes were built in the US, sometimes even centuries before other parts of the country. So let's first start with the far Northeast and work our way down. And a popular old money vacation destination, just general vacation destination among middle class and people of all classes in the Northeast, is the state of Maine. But there are two main areas of Maine that are known for old money. The first one is in the north. It's an island called Bar Harbor. A lot of old money elites, a lot of political elites have homes here. It's a nice rustic kind of getaway place, and the weather is very mild given how far north it is in the summer, where it's a lot more hot and humid in places like New York City and Philadelphia. But it's a little bit too hard to get to for more new money people for a weekend commute compared to some more of the closer getaways for them. And as we've mentioned, access to nightlife and culture, as well as being within close enough commuting distance to your place of work, is a big divider between old money and new money getaway places. The old money places tend to be more remote and harder to get to, and Bar Harbor is a good example of that. The other one in Maine is actually a little bit closer to the New Hampshire border. It's Kennebunkport, and Kennebunkport or Kennebuck Beach are known for being old money because this is where the Bush family's compound is. They have a big vacation estate right here, and their presence is just kind of epitomizes the prominence of political and social elites to go to this part of Maine. So Kennebunkport and Bar Harbor are the main old money destinations in Maine. As we get further south, a lot of it is really along Long Island Sound is where both the old and new money, New Englanders, New Yorkers, and Northeasterners kind of like to spend their summer or have summer homes. Historically, Newport, Rhode Island was an old money hub. Like you see mansions lined up along the coast, such as the Breakers from the Gilded Age era. But a lot of those have since become museums or less occupied. And it's become a place where people go maybe for like anniversary parties or special occasions or historical tributes. And it's become a lot less of a lively vacation spot than it was like a century or ago or 150 years ago. And a lot of the people who used to summer in Newport have moved to newer pastures. And the main newer pastures really are the two islands just to the south of Cape Cod, which are Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. They have both known for having elites. This is where the Kennedys are. The Obamas have a house on Martha's Vineyard. It's John Kerry. A lot of the Boston Brahmin class has properties here. And they even had like a Martha's Vineyard magazine back in the day, which kind of was like high and home decor and travel. So Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket are kind of like the prime old money vacation destinations really still in the Northeast, and especially popular among the political elites. And then the other one, new money place, is mainly the Hamptons. This is where you have the hedge fund managers or the new money tech bros or entrepreneurs in New York go buy a mansion here, throw big parties, etc. And a lot of this area is kind of just too hard to get to prior to the mainstreamification of cars and the highway system. So it got more developed, but now it's about a 3-hour drive from New York City to get there. So it's far enough away that it feels like a vacation, but close enough if you really had to get back to the city for some business purposes, you could still do it. And the areas include Southampton, Bridgehampton, I'll probably pronounce it this correctly this time, Sagaponack, East Hampton, and Montauk. This is just kind of the new money hub of the Northeast outside of Florida, of course, in the summer, like taking your trips to the Hamptons. And then the other place that's kind of an old money place that is Watch Hill, Rhode Island, right on the border of Connecticut and Rhode Island. Again, it's kind of like Newport. It is not really as prominent as it used to be, as that crowd is now going more towards Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, and the new money has been more in the Hamptons. But that kind of summarizes Northeastern summering on the Atlantic coast. And then we can't forget about our friends in Canada. They have one notable old money vacation destination. There's not that many new money vacation destinations. A lot of new money goes to American destinations such as Scottsdale, Arizona, Palm Desert, Florida, etc. A lot of new money Canadians also go to the Caribbean, which we've mentioned that in the previous videos. So they're really the only one in Eastern Canada that is still a prominent old money or new money vacation place is Muskoka and the lakes surrounding Muskoka Lakes. This is where the most premium, like, second home real estate is. It's not too far away from Toronto, but it's also not super close to Toronto either. And it's a little bit more mild of a climate and just away from the busyness. Among the wealthy Canadians I know, from Eastern Canada, they generally have a house in Muskoka or the surrounding areas. And so that kind of wraps up Canadian old money, at least Eastern Canadian old money. And then last but not least, we're going to move to the South, because the Southeast, especially with how the economy in the South has grown in the last 30 to 40 years, has developed some old money and new money enclaves, mostly along the Atlantic coast. These places really weren't developed as primary cities because of hurricane risk. And it explains in general why most of the major cities in the southeastern United States are more inland, such as Nashville, Atlanta, Charlotte, Raleigh, and even DC to a certain degree are inland because of risk of hurricanes blowing down your cities. And just the cost of repairs were just a lot more prohibitive back then. And so as a result, people didn't really want to build a town that was at risk of just being destroyed. So a lot of the infrastructure and things were developed more inland, with the one notable exception historically being Charleston, which was historically a port that goes back to the colonial days. And due to its unique history and its favorable geography and nice beaches, it has become a new money hub, particularly the area in downtown Charleston, which is kind of a mix of colonial style architecture and historical charm, but with really nice upscale modern mansions that people live in as well. And particularly the area south of Broad, like the southern tip of Charleston, has real estate that is as expensive as some of the most luxurious cities in North America, even though the average income in Greater Charleston really is not high enough, and the jobs there locally are not numerous enough to support such amount of new money. So it's mostly people from elsewhere who have second homes or retirement homes here in Charleston. Another new money place, and somewhat old money for the South, but new money from people elsewhere in the country, is Kiowa Island. And Kiowa Island is known for having really nice golf courses and a sense of exclusivity that makes it a little bit perceived more elite than Hilton Head. But we're going to get more to Hilton Head, because Hilton Head has its own split between old money and new money. And as we go further south, we are going to discuss Hilton Head. Hilton Head, most of it is upper middle class enclaves for the most part, where people with like business owners, doctors, lawyers from Atlanta or Charleston or other parts of the South, even some from New York or North Carolina, come to play golf and enjoy the beach. It's a lot generally more accessible, and there is a lot of middle class and upper middle class tourists who do come to Hilton Head. But nonetheless, some pockets of wealth have developed. The main old money is in the southwest corner. You have the neighborhoods of Wexford that stand out particularly, and Sea Pines and surrounding areas. New money is kind of in two corners of the island. On the south, it's really the area by Harbor Town. Harbor Town is a really famous golf course that often has PGA events or close to it, and is an elite country club. And the suburbs around there, which kind of is the other new money on the opposite corner of the island. Last but not least, we have the state of Georgia. Savannah has the potential to be a new money enclave due to its artistic presence, thanks to SCAD, and its fun nightlife scene and its proximity to Hilton Head Island in Atlanta. But it's still a ways from really truly becoming a super upscale, exclusive new money enclave. But it's one to watch for if you want to find a future place on the East Coast. But the one old money enclave that is in Georgia is Sea Island, which is a similar vibe to Amelia Island. It's actually really close to Jekyll Island, where the secret meetings that created the Federal Reserve supposedly took place, and where the creature before he went to the Eccles building. But enough of Austrian economics humor. Back to Sea Island. This is an old money thing, that's enclave that's been popular among Southern elites and Northeastern elites since at least the turn of the 20th century, and it continues to be so. But overall, really, the Northeast had surprisingly fewer old and new money vacation destinations, because a lot of these people travel to other places, particularly Florida. And now we're going to talk about the geography of wealth of Hawaii. And given the fact that Hawaii is a relatively small population, about 1.5 million people, and a lot of the money from Hawaii comes from elsewhere, I am merging the geography of wealth of vacations Hawaii along with the general geography of wealth for Hawaii to get a more complete picture of it. And the tourist flows of Hawaii are a really strong class signal. Like, whether you come to Hawaii and what parts of Hawaii you go to when you visit Hawaii are very revealing about your social class, whether you know it or not. And we're going to explain why as we break down the geography of wealth. First, Hawaii is solely a professional class and above vacation destination at this point. Maybe some middle class families, if they save enough and make it like a once in a lifetime type of thing, then yeah, you can see some middle class families going to Hawaii, like maybe for their honeymoons or like a very special occasion. But for people who say go to Hawaii maybe more than 5 or more times in their lifetime, it's definitely professional class and above who are the ones going to Hawaii. And the very old money elites are less likely to go to Hawaii just due to the fact that it's very mainstream. It's a very, for lack of a better term, basic place to go on vacation. And it's those who you have to go through the conventional air travel to get there for the most part. It's not really as remote and obscure and understated that a lot of old money travelers go. So a lot of the elites who want a more tropical island destination are more likely to go to some Caribbean enclaves like St. Bart's, or if they will go to places that are more temperate climates, such as the Mediterranean. But so a lot of the rich who go to Hawaii are generally new money as a result. And Hawaii, as you'll see, is a popular new money destination. But first, let's kind of go island by island. The Big Island is kind of more of a middle class, upper middle class tourist destination. There's not that really many old or new money enclaves, both among residents and tourism. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Mauna Kea is still an active volcano. And there's a real risk that a lava flow can run over your house. Homes actually trade at significant discounts to other parts of the country and other coastal areas, especially within Hawaii, because of the risk of lava flow just cutting through their house and making the Big Island, quite frankly, uninsurable. Lanai, which is this island right here, I'm not going to really get into much of it because it's essentially Larry Ellison's private island at this point. We're going to start with Maui. The Lahaina fires kind of change a lot of the dynamics, so I'm not going to really talking about Greater Lahaina, which includes Napili, Kaanapali, and Lahaina itself. But Lahaina and Kaanapali and that greater area is typically more of an upper middle class vacation destination. The fact that Kaanapali and Lahaina was the most popular place I went to in Hawaii as a family might reveal my professional class background. But yeah, generally, it's a lot of like big hotels or relatively commercialized vacation, a lot of turnover in and out, but unless in terms of like second homes. Like the one place that's kind of more of a new money enclave is Kapalua, which has a very prestigious golf course, which they have one of the first PGA Tour events every year. I think it used to be called the Mercedes Championship. I don't know what it's called now off the top of my head. And you see a lot of the luxury second homes and that type of real estate in Maui in and around Kapalua. So that's kind of the new money place. It's close to a lot of the action that tourists have, which is mainly was in Lahaina. I'm not really sure on how rebuilt it is at this point, but Kapalua is kind of the new money, like residential enclave. Maui has less than 300,000 people, so it's not really that big of a city to have that much of a local elite who's lived there beyond maybe a few plantation owners. Most of the money that comes into Maui, like anywhere else in Hawaii, is mostly from the mainland US or abroad. And then the older money place in terms of tourists and where the more elites go is the most famous hotel in this area is the Grand. And oftentimes when you think of very wealthy people going on vacation to Maui, it's around the beach. It's where the most exclusive hotels, etc., on the island. Now that we've covered Maui, we're going to move on to Oahu, which Oahu tends to be the most higher end in terms of residential old and new money. Like if people want to live in Hawaii full time, Oahu is generally where they do it because you have a lot of the big city amenities through Honolulu, which has more than 500,000 people, and 2/3 of the population of Hawaii lives on Oahu. And you can have more of a normal life with normal city amenities. It's not solely a tourist enclave, but at the same time, the fact that it is so urbanized and dense makes it less appealing to tourists, particularly higher end tourists. So like the middle class tourists are most likely to go to Oahu, particularly the area around Waikiki and the beaches of Honolulu itself. Ko'olina on the West Coast can be a little bit more of a upper middle class crowd. They have resorts such as Aulani, and a lot of the Marriott vacation clubs are over there. And Ko'olina, if you don't know, is here on the west coast, southwest coast of Oahu. But in terms of residents, there's really kind of two main enclaves for like the wealthy residents of Hawaii. The old money is in a place called Kahal. It's by Diamond Head, which is a very popular like hiking destination. It has some of the best views of Honolulu and Hawaii. If you're ever going to go to Oahu, I recommend doing a hike on Diamond Head. The newer money tends to be in Kailua, which is a little bit further away from core Honolulu, and it's on the east coast of Oahu. But it was developed a little later, and this is where you have the opportunity to have bigger houses and more new money moves here, particularly from the mainland, such as California. And so those are kind of the two main residential old money and new money enclaves. But in terms of tourists, I think Oahu's probably the most low end, but like everywhere in Hawaii is pretty high end, just given the high cost of traveling to Hawaii. And then the last island we're going to talk about is Kauai, which is kind of more remote. It's more nature focused and less in terms of like nightlife and activities. But their main two, most of it is upper middle class. The places such as the areas around Lihue, Poipu, and the southern and eastern coasts of Kauai have more of a middle to upper middle class tourist crowd and professional class. And yeah, that's where I stayed when I went to Kauai. The elites tend to be on the north shore of Kauai. The old money is in a place called Hanalei, which is this almost perfectly circular bay on the north side. It's a very nice beach. Very laid back vibe. It has a lot of exclusive, like more custom built homes, and it's one of the priciest places in Hawaii, and definitely the priciest place in Kauai. And then you have the new money is in a place called Princeville. And if you drive to Princeville, the inside of it is more of the vibe of like a typical Sunbelt suburb you'd find in either like Orange County, California, or in Florida. It's got very it's a master plan community with a lot of tract homes. and a golf course and tennis courts and very well paved streets and like just a lot more organized, whereas there's more like tucked in and like a little bit more understated. Princeville is like trying to bring like a high-end new money American suburb and plopping it on Hawaii. So that's kind of where the more new money is. And yeah, in general, the reason why I would say Hawaii in general, visiting Hawaii puts you in at least the middle class just due to the cost. Like a typical trip to Hawaii, just for a flight, is going to be anywhere from $300 to $900 a person. Hotels, like if you're going to stay on a place that's near the beach, it's going to cost you at least $300 to $350 a night. If you want like a fancier resort, it's going to be probably at least $500 a night. And renting a car is pretty expensive in Hawaii. It's about $100 a day. At least gas is expensive. Unless you're eating at Costco every day, you're going to be spending quite a lot on restaurants because food prices are quite a bit higher in Hawaii. So it really adds up. Like your typical trip to Hawaii, it's anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 for a couple. And if you're making, say, less than $150,000 a year, that's not really a financially responsible vacation to go at. Like a rule of thumb really is like 2.5% of income, gross income, or 5% of after-tax income is like the appropriate amount to spend on vacations every year. And if you want to go to Hawaii and it's $5,000, you're probably, in order to do it comfortably without really busting your budget, you're going to need to be at least in the $150,000 to $200,000 a year range or above. And so that's why I think it's relatively expensive. And then within Hawaii, there are certain places that, again, are more class coded. Like Oahu tends to be more middle class. Ko'olina, though, within Oahu tends to be a little more upper middle class. Maui tends to be definitely more upper middle class, with Kapalua being new money and Wailea being more old money. Those are the richer enclaves. And then Kauai, basically on the east and the south side, tends to be more upper middle class. And the north side tends to be high net worth, old and new money. Lanai is also a new money vacation destination due to the Four Seasons that is on that island. And the rest of it effectively has been privatized by Ellison. And the Big Island tends to be, again, a more middle class and upper middle class destination. Mauna Kea is a very cool volcano to see, but again, the risk of lava flow makes it less appealing for old and new money to buy property there. Overall, what are your thoughts about Hawaii? Are you optimistic or pessimistic on the economic future of Hawaii? And are vacations to Hawaii in terms of frequency and locations really a strong class indicator, as I think they are? Let me know. I love making these a conversation, and thank you for watching.
The Riviera is a sunny place for shady people. Somerset Mom.
Welcome to Analyzing Finance with Nick. We are going to wrap up our elite vacation guide with Europe. And we're going to discuss where the old and new money like to vacation in Europe, whether that's old money local Europeans or new money Americans, Asians, Latin Americans, Africans, or people just from all over the rest of the world, because Europe is the global summer vacation spot for international elites. And one thing you are going to notice is that the new money places tend to be more popular with those who do not live on the continent, whereas the old money places tend to be more popular with wealthy European residents or people whose families have lived in Europe for a long time. Even a lot of old money Americans oftentimes prefer the new money vacation places. And just as a disclosure, I have briefly lived in Europe when I did a semester abroad out there and have visited Europe several times for extended trips, but I've spent most of my adult life living in the United States of America. So I am clouded with somewhat of an American bias. And because of that, I may have missed some destinations that are truly old or new money because they're hard to verify beyond my own experience with travel in the region. Without further ado, the first place we're going to get started with, which is the epicenter of wealthy vacationing in Europe, is the French Riviera. The French Riviera
as a mix of old and new money, but it's historically more of an old money place because it was one of the first like resort areas to be really established and regularly traveled. It's not that far away from Paris or the major cities in northern Italy or Switzerland. So it was able to develop a tourist industry even before the advent of airplanes because there's a short train ride for a lot of cities to get there. And its relatively mild climate compared to surrounding regions made a very attractive place for people to go in the winters. And the warm Mediterranean Sea made it a very attractive place for people to go swim in the ocean in the summers and relax. And the old money destinations are the more established, understated places where you have more nobility go to. And the new money is kind of stuff where, similar to in America, when the old money places just became out of land to sale, the new money came in neighboring towns and gentrified them, for lack of a better term. But let's just start with the most old of the old money in the French Riviera. And there are two main parts. In the east, close to the Italian border, there is Monaco and the towns surrounding Monaco. A lot of people would argue Monaco is new money because a lot of new money moves there due to favorable tax laws, especially if you're not an American citizen. But Monaco, well, before that, was a place had wealthy Monegasque and also old money French people would move to. It's been wealthy for a while, even if new money is buying more into it recently. Other cities surrounding it that are particularly old money are Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat, Elie, and Enns. I think they're all wonderful places to visit and definitely are worth checking out. My first European vacation as an adult included visiting this part of the Riviera. The new money place in this eastern part of the Riviera is Nice. Nice was just known as like the big city, the place at the airport, but as the old money already filled up Monaco and the surrounding area, a lot of the newer money who wanted more like hustle and bustle and being like more of a city lifestyle and proximity to the airport started to develop Nice and upscale Nice over the recent years. And that's become more of the newer money area in the French Riviera. And then we're going to go now to the more western side of the French Riviera where there are other sets of old and new money areas. The old money area in the western part of the French Riviera is surrounded mainly by the two towns of Antibes and Cannes. There's really a place around Antibes known as Billionaires Row, where there are a lot of these mansions just along the Cap d'Antibes, where it's either dictators or former dictators from various emerging market countries go to retire, or just old wealthy elites who are displaced from their home countries to move here to settle down and relax. Cannes is also famous for the Cannes Film Festival that happens there every year. And one of the two Thanksgivings that I've ever celebrated outside of North America. The other part, though, really, in terms of new money in the south part of the western part of the French Riviera, is Saint-Tropez. Saint-Tropez is very famous for its lavish and extravagant nightlife. And with that kind of happening environment, it tends to attract newer money. It's a little bit further away from the more quiet and established older money parts of the French Riviera. It has a lot of wealth there. It's just a little bit more flashy. And as a result, Saint-Tropez is the newer money place, really, in the French Riviera in this western part. And there's one more little understated older money place close to Marseille, which is Aix-en-Provence, which is more like the inland winery country vibe type style. And it's more laid back. It's not on the radar. And that's what a lot of the wealthy French elites who don't want to deal with the scene of the Riviera, but you still get the favorable climate and you're still within a relatively short driving distance to the Riviera or other beaches on the Mediterranean coast. So that kind of wraps up the old and new money in southern France. And we're now going to go to the Iberian Peninsula, where old money is more limited, especially in Spain, due to a lot of the political turmoil that happened there in the middle of the 20th century. And like the really, truly old money place in Portugal is a town called Sintra, which I think is more popular as a residence and a retirement place than a vacation. But the mild climate, the proximity to Lisbon, and the proximity to the ocean makes Sintra really a popular old money enclave to relax. It's actually been showed up in American news recently as a former Chicago White Sox pitcher, Bobby Jenks, who recently passed away, was living in Sintra at the time. And then the newer money really in Portugal, which is probably a lot of British money and tourists are going down here, as well as from other colder parts of continental Europe, is the Algarve region, particularly the area between Lagos and Corteria. This place is known as being like the golf capital of Southern Europe. It's like if I had to describe it, it's the European version of Hilton Head Island in a way, where you have nice beaches and a lot of nice golf, and especially for European standards, very modern resort style development here. And so I would consider the Algarve region the new money part of Portugal. And it is on my checklist of places to visit because I have not had a chance to go to the Algarve personally. And then as for Spain, a lot of new money has been attracted to Spain mainly because of its favorable climate and its relatively lower cost of Mediterranean real estate compared to, say, other places with similar climates, such as California. And so it's been a major draw for American and British tourists and retirees. A lot of them like to go particularly to the greater Barcelona area, but in terms of like a pure vacation vibe, because I'm not really going into old and new money permanent residences. If I was going to do that, there's a lot of other cities and civic neighborhoods in the major European capitals I'd be diving into. And I just don't feel like my knowledge of permanent residency in the neighborhoods in Europe is enough to do that video yet. But my European commenters and viewers who'd like to help me do research on that, please leave in the comments, like, what are some places I should consider for old and new money permanent residents across the continent of Europe that I should dive into. So we're going to next go, though, back to Spain. We have Marbella. Marbella is the new money resort town in Spain. A lot of like higher end timeshare like deals are there. A lot of the Americans, particularly in English, are buying second houses there. It's got warm weather. It's got the resort vibes. It's fairly walkable. It's close enough to Malaga, which has a decent sized airport to get people there. So it's become like the new money hub for mainland Spain. And the other place really that you have a lot of new money tourism in Spain are the Balearic Islands. Ibiza, a lot of people would consider that to be new money, but I just think that the demographic that goes to Ibiza is too diverse on the socioeconomic scale, and it's more of a party place than a purely just new money place. That's like saying the whole city of Miami is basically new money, or Las Vegas is new money. So that's why I don't really include that here. So Mallorca is really where the focus of the Balearic Islands analysis, and there actually is some old money in Mallorca. It's in the northwestern corner of the island, the area of Valdea and Port de Soler. It reminded me when I visited this part of Mallorca of an old-fashioned version of Newport Coast. For those who've been to Orange County, California, Newport Coast has like this Italian Spanish style architecture, but like with a late 20th century, early 21st century modern kind of hybrid vibes to it. And I would say Dea is what Newport Coast was trying to emulate. except it's more authentic here in Majorca than it is in Orange County, California. So if you want to imagine it, that's what it is. It's rugged coastline. It's very nice weather. It's very exclusive, very expensive properties, and difficult to get to. It's even from Palma, it's a decent drive. You have to go through some tiny mountainous rural roads. It's like other old money places, relatively inaccessible, but very refined and upscale. Whereas the new money in Majorca is in the southern coast and close to the main airport, which is at Palma. It spreads in the southwestern coast from the area of St. Elm to the west, Port de Antrak, Camp del Mar is a little bit more upper middle class, but it's in the surrounding area. Portal News, this general southwestern coast area of Majorca is the new money area of the island. And now that we're done with the Iberian Peninsula, we're going to move up to Switzerland and Germany. And speaking of Switzerland and Germany, the Analyzing Finance Nick tour is actually coming to Europe this summer. And we have 4 stops, one in Amsterdam at the end of August. We had Zurich and Geneva on September 2nd and 3rd, respectively. And last but not least, Rome, Italy on September 5th. So if you're going on a European vacation, or you are planning a European vacation, or happen to just live in Europe and want to see me, supplement your trip with an Analyzing Finance with Nick meetup. The next thing we're going to talk about, though, is Switzerland and Germany. In Germany, there's really only one really old money place. And a lot of the old wealth is concentrated in the south because this place was relatively unharmed by World War II compared to other parts of Europe, and also had a less tension in terms of involving the unification of Germany. And there's really a town in the south, this lake called Tegernsee. I'm not Tegernsee. I'm not really the best at pronouncing it, but this lake and the town around it is where the old money in Munich like to vacation when they want to be close by. And then now we're going to focus on Switzerland. Switzerland has a lot of wealth because of its favorable banking, secrecy laws, or at least it used to be, and favorable tax regime relative to the rest of Europe, and the fact that it was relatively unharmed in World War I and World War II during its neutrality, and the fact that it really hasn't got involved in any major European conflict since the Napoleonic Wars has allowed Switzerland to maintain and compound its wealth more successfully than neighboring countries. But we're just going to go through the old and new money vacation destinations in Switzerland. And we'll start with the old money destinations, and there are 3. The first one is Gstaad. Gstaad is a popular winter ski resort area. It's one of the first ultra-wealthy ski resort areas to be developed in the world, and it is very limited and very exclusive. The new money in the region for mountain trips and experience goes for a little further south to Zermatt, which is near the famous Matterhorn mountain. And that's more the new money ski area in western Switzerland compared to Gstaad for the older money. Montreux is also the newer money area in western Switzerland in the French part. It's famous for the Montreux Jazz Festival and for its relatively mild climate compared to the rest of German and French-speaking Switzerland. And it is relatively pricey compared to the other parts of the Greater Lake of Swiss. Generally like to go on vacation to the mountains when they are traveling domestically. So that's why I'm focusing a lot of these on mountain and ski resort type places. And one of the better mountain areas for vacations in Switzerland is the eastern canton of Graubünden. And there is a triangle that is popular for the wealthy of Switzerland to have their summer or winter vacations up in the mountains. The main old money hub in the area is St. Moritz, which is one of these old, ritzy, and very exclusive ski resort towns. It's more popular in the winter because there's less to do there in summertime. But nonetheless, it's one of the more exclusive resort towns really in Switzerland as a whole, especially in this region. And then the newer money is this triangle basically between St. Moritz the Lenzerhorn greater area, and Davos, which is famous obviously for the World Economic Forum. And this triangle here is where you have a lot of new money Swiss chalets, and where people who couldn't really get into St. Moritz, but still this more eastern Switzerland, rugged mountain type area for vacation, built their vacation homes and chalets. A lot of old, newer money from Zurich built their properties here or bought their properties here, particularly, as well as elites from other parts of Europe. But it still is more local than, I would say, Zermatt and some of the other newer money places in Switzerland. And then last but not least, we got to talk about the Italian part of Switzerland, or known as Ticino. And in Ticino, the old money place is Lugano, particularly. And Lugano is a very unique place. It's probably my favorite city in Switzerland. And if I were to live in Europe, this is probably the city I would move to personally. It has a much warmer climate than the rest of Switzerland. Its average temperature in the winter is above freezing by at least 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And so it's unlikely to snow here. And the summers are mild and nice. They have a nice lake, Lugano, that's great for swimming or just relaxing. It's got like Italian food and Italian culture, but with Swiss timeliness and efficiency. So it's the best of both worlds. So that's the description I'm going to give you guys for Lugano. And surrounding Lugano is the lake next door to Lake Lugano, and that is Lake Como, which, even though it's in Italy, it's another old money European destination that just happens to be right next to Switzerland. Lake Como is famous for a lot of celebrities who have second homes here. It's a favorite vacation destination for George Clooney. A lot of old money from Italy, particularly Milan, and from Switzerland and other parts of Europe like to vacation in Como, and a lot of wealthy Americans particularly like to vacation in Como. It's also famous because all the scenes, the prequel trilogy in Star Wars that were on the planet Naboo were filmed around Lake Como in Italy. So for a fun fact. And so that's it, northern Italy. But now we're going to go into the rest of Italy, because Italy is a popular old and new money vacation destination. Instead of sorting by old and new money, we're just going to work further south the boot. And so there are two new money places in the northern central part of Italy. And the first one is Portofino, which really started as kind of like a cruise ship drop-off point, but has since kind of become a new money hub, particularly popular with American new money likes to go on vacation. And Florence is probably the most extreme example. A lot of Europeans like to joke that Florence is essentially boomer America, and it's the most popular destination for new money and upper middle class boomer Americans to go on vacation is Florence and the surrounding areas in Tuscany. I just know that just through my personal network, and where they like to travel in Florence, especially among the boomer crowd, is extremely popular. And as a result, it's gotten more expensive to go there over the years because of a lot of retiring boomers buying second homes there or liking to spend extra time. So it's the Florence and the surrounding Tuscan hills and Portofino are the newer money areas of northern Italy. As we go down in southern Italy, there's also some more new money places. And they're basically the stretch of the Amalfi Coast is the other popular new money vacation destination. Also very popular among Americans. And it stretches from the Isle of Capri to the west and goes east across the Amalfi Coast to Satara and Positano. And this whole region has just become a popular honeymoon destination. But as it's gone more up in price, it's become more of a newer money destination. And then the last new money place I want to talk about in the Adriatic region is actually outside of Italy, and that is Dubrovnik in Croatia. Dubrovnik has become a very trendy place to travel in the last decade or two. And there's just a broader event that attracts a lot of wealth, and there's really not a specific place it points to. So I'm just using Dubrovnik as a placeholder because a lot of it starts and ends here. And that is Croatian Yacht Week, where a lot of the hedge fund money, investment bankers, New York money, London money, a lot of wealthy people from other parts of the world will rent a yacht and go spend a week or two, or even a whole summer if they've got the time, just hanging out their boats up and down the islands that dot the Adriatic coast of Croatia. And Dubrovnik is like the tourist hub that within like the whole yacht week broader infrastructure, for a lack of a better term. And then last but not least, in our survey of old and new money vacation places in Europe, I'm going to go to the United Kingdom, because the United Kingdom, due to, again, relatively peaceful politics, lack of major revolutions, and relatively less damage or world wars, has been able to sustain extended wealth, and particularly older money. And there's the old money that the extremes of the UK. In the south, Cornwall is known for having old money. Not all of Cornwall, but particularly the western tips of Cornwall near lands and surrounding towns is an old money vacation getaway place for the British nobility. And then for new money, the main area is London, but the new money going to London is not really British people, because the new money in Britain mostly lives in the greater London area. Is people from overseas, particularly outside of Europe. A lot of Americans, a lot of Middle Eastern, a lot of East Asians, and a lot of wealthy from other corners of the emerging world all center in on London as a vacation getaway for the billionaire class. You can have relative discretion because it's a big city that is busy with other things, so you can keep your relative anonymity. And it is one of the global capital cities in the world, up there with New York. And so that is a draw, and things such as shopping and higher end urban experiences that may not be available in other places in Europe or in the old world are more available in London. So London has, particularly the neighborhoods I talked about in the geography of wealth, part 3, where I broke down London specifically, kind of go more details into that. I was surprised because, like, in other parts of the UK, whether it's like the English countryside or Scotland, Fife or St. Andrews or the Skye Peninsula or Balmoral, there's a lot of pockets of nobility, royal family getaways and wealth, but they're not really consolidated enough in a single town or region in the rest of the UK to be truly an older new money enclave. It's a lot more evenly distributed than I anticipated. There'll be like a very upper class area next to a working class area, and it's just for one old noble state surrounded by relatively empty countryside. It wasn't really that clear to find like a certain hard old and new money regions beyond Cornwall and London. But that's going to wrap up our old money series in Europe. Let me know where I missed, because I probably missed a bunch of places, to be quite honest. And let me know also if I should do an old money geography of wealth for permanent residents across the European continent. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of your summer vacation season. Outside of the previous regions we've already covered, I'm going to add a few Southern Hemisphere destinations that have popped up on my research of old and new money vacation destinations. The first one is French Polynesia, which is a popular but very exclusive honeymoon destination. It is very difficult to get here, even though it's only a slightly different in terms of time for the flight. The flight costs are often double here versus flying to comparable South Pacific areas such as Australia, New Zealand, or Fiji. And
the resorts all start basically at the 5-star level, except for maybe inside the capital, Papeete, in Tahiti. And the most exclusive, which I would consider the old money place really in French Polynesia, is Bora Bora. Bora Bora is famous for those resorts where they have the rooms basically being these little huts on wharfs that jet out from the beach, so you're just basically right on the water. It's a lot more difficult to get to because if you're flying to French Polynesia, the main airport is on the main island of Tahiti, and so you have to have a connecting flight or a boat or some other secondary way to get there in terms of a connection. So if you're coming here to get away from everything. It's relatively isolated in the middle of the Southwest Pacific Ocean, and in terms of price point and in terms of who comes here, it's mostly elites from America, Western Europe, particularly France, and the Asia Pacific region. I don't really know if there's a new money place in French Polynesia. I mean, Tahiti, the main island, would be the closest, but it also is more relatively accessible to upper middle class people as well. But I would still consider it on the margin a more new money place in this region. If we go outside of French Polynesia, we go to Australia and New Zealand, and there are old and new money places. The old money place in New Zealand is the Queenstown area and the Lake Wakatipu basin. This is known for being a place that's popular for those who participate in extreme sports such as bungee jumping, there's skiing nearby, a lot of other water sports and outdoor extreme sports that usually, as I mentioned in my social class and sports videos, tend to have very high entry point prices. And so you travel to a far away, relatively hard to get to place to participate in relatively expensive activities and extreme sports. That kind of is the perfect setup for an old money enclave for tourists, and that's what Queenstown is. And then in Australia, there's one main old money and one main new money destination. The old money destination is in Sydney, but not just anywhere in Sydney. It is the Vaucluse Bay. And this town is kind of where the colonial elites got set up when Australia was relatively newly established, and it's now where elites from the UK, Australia, and the Asia Pacific region go to buy property in Greater Sydney. I plan on doing a meetup in Australia in 2026, and if I happen to have the chance, I'd like to go visit this place in person. Maybe if you people who live in Watsons Bay or Vaucluse or the eastern coast area of Sydney have a suggested venue, I should have it there. I'm open to suggestions, but this is kind of known as like the gold standard, most exclusive, high-end, most expensive property price place in Sydney. And then for the new money, it's a little bit north. It's up in Queensland in the Gold Coast area, which I'll also be visiting as part of the Analyzing Finance with Nick tour in Australia in 2026. But within the Gold Coast, there's really one particular area. It is the Paradise Point and the Sovereign Islands right next door. This is like the most exclusive area for new money. This is more modern, like Queensland and Brisbane and the Gold Coast were developed much later than Sydney and Melbourne. So it's much more high-end luxury condos, newly developed mansions, more new money from local Australians and from Asia Pacific, and less old English colonial money that would be more common in Sydney. So this is the new money place in Australia. Now, as we continue our journey in the Southern Hemisphere, we're going to go further to the east in the Indian Ocean, where we have an old money enclave of the Seychelles. There's a lot of exclusive islands here that people could rent privately, which is common among the old money elites. And in general, it's a very exclusive, hard to get to, upscale tropical vacation destination for European elites particularly. Americans don't generally come here because it's way too far away generally for most air travel. So it's more common among European elites. And that is the Seychelles. And then for other place in Africa, I'm not really sure, since I haven't spent much time in South Africa, if it's a more residence or vacation or both, but the western suburbs of Cape Town by Table Mountain. They include Fresney, Clifton, and Camps Bay. These are places where they have some of the elite guard-gated communities in the Cape Town area. This is where some of the most expensive real estate is in South Africa, and where elites from mainly England, local South Africans, Western Europeans, particularly Swiss, Germans, and people from the Benelux buy second homes. And and Cape Town is generally known as the most upscale part of South Africa. So this is the most upscale part of the most upscale part of South Africa. And it has Mediterranean climate similar to California or Mediterranean Europe, which makes it attractive, especially as a winter getaway for a lot of Europeans, because it's in the southern hemisphere. So the peak of South African summer is when it's also the coldest in Europe. So yeah, that's the popular place for old money vacation getaways in South Africa, and probably the only one on continental Africa. And then last but not least, we're going to cross the Atlantic to South America, where we're going to talk about the one old and new money vacation place there. And that, and I mentioned it in our Geography of Wealth of Latin America, is the greater Punta del Este area. Watch my video on the Geography of Wealth for Latin America for more specifics, but Punta del Este is where the elites of Argentina, Uruguay, and southern Brazil go for vacation. It's starting to become more popular among North American wealthy new money and elsewhere. But the older money is concentrated among the point itself, which is the intersection of the Rio de la Plata and the Atlantic Ocean, whereas the newer money is in surrounding suburbs next door on each side. Again, watch my video about the Geography of Wealth of Latin America for more details on Punta. And with that wraps up our old money vacation guide. Where in these places do you want to go on vacation next? I would love to hear it. And where would you want me to have a spot in the 2026 tour other than the 2 Australian locations? I hope you enjoyed this guide, and thank you for watching. And I hope you have a good vacation season next summer.